now call the public hearing to order to receive comment on the following proposed local law. Proposed local law introductory to 2025, clarifying section 325-17, chapter 325 of the Hudson City Code. This public hearing has been duly advertised in the city official newspaper on September 27th. Lyric, as the clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Thompson here. Sassaludi here. Ryan Shaw. Mizan. Morris. Here. Hagan.
Here.
Ronnie.
Here.
Sawa.
Here.
Bola.
Here.
President DiPietro. Quorum present.
I'd now like to open the floor for comments on the proposed local law. You don't have to, but for the record, it would help if you stated your name and address. Furthermore, please limit your comments 2 minutes, or let's make it 3 minutes. And also, address them for the substance of this law, not the general issue of Paul Russo's Paul Road for dock that are currently before. Second one, take this up for timing. Okay, anyone like to speak? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'll try to keep it to 3 minutes. My name is TJ Irwin. I'm the attorney for A. Colarusso and Son, Inc. I'm from White Nussman and Hannah. Colarusso is the only business and property owner, as Common Council knows, that will be affected by this proposed local law. We've been before the planning board since 2017 on the dock operations and have made significant progress in coming up with a conditional use permit. This local law is an unconstitutional, impermissible act by the city common council. Colarusso is currently permitted to have 142 trucks arrive at the dock per day. That permit was issued by the planning board. And in light of that, as a result of that permit, Colarusso spent $2 million the whole. This permit can now restrict truck traffic at the dock to 10 truck trips a day, 142. Put Colarusso out of business and put people out of work. This local law, given the significant progress the planning board has made and the experts and consultants we have hired to propose conditions to eliminate all of the environmental impacts with dock operations, serves absolutely no legitimate purpose except to harm Colarusso. It was put forth by project opponents that have been opposing their dock since 2011 and have lost every single lawsuit that they have filed against Colarusso and the city of Hudson. And this is just another desperate attempt. And all it's going to do is result in hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and potentially millions of dollars in damage for the city for violating Colarusso's constitutional rights. Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder, this is not a Q&A. It's for you to give us your comments on the local law. Anyone else? Yes.
John Rosenthal, former alderman here. Just walked in on what sounds like a rather aggressive and bullying comments from the holders of attorneys, which is unfortunate given that the local law as proposed, as I read it, is designed in the spirit of how the zoning was enacted in the first place, which was about balancing interests of the waterfront. For issues, if approved for the dock, represent a massive distortion of that balance. And I think to act in the spirit of the LWRP, which is clear in its intent to balance intensification of use of the waterfront, is no thing. Now, being in your capacity as public officials to be cowed and to be fear of lawsuits, et cetera, I think it's a bad position to be. It's a bad place to act if you're afraid of acting in the public interest as opposed to acting specifically against threats from the applicants. Whether or not it was the intent of the Port Russo to split the way the review happened that brought us to this place. The private road, Paul Road, has its own set of conditions. The dock has its separate conditions as well and separate activities. So suddenly a project that has spent years before the city that was positioned by the company is not being about intensification, about public safety, taking trucks off the street. Now is positioned that any ability to regulate a local business, which is within the rights of the common council to regulate businesses and regulate all businesses, bars, etc. Suddenly a modest attempt to present a framework that regulates a business is now positioned as being an insult on so it goes in the language here seems to be way beyond the idea that the company would go out of business seems ridiculous. And I think if they're talking about lawsuits, that would have to be proven in court, so they have to come up their books at that point. So I think in the spirit of trying to stake a common sense solution for the water, I would say that a modest allowance based upon historic data that comes from the current applicant's project, from the planning board, using numbers that they provided about activity that goes back to 2015, not 2011, I think is a good place for the common council to take. I wouldn't be cowed by intimidation.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Nicole?
I'm Nicole Vidor. I live on Allen Street, love the waterfront. And I was going to stand up just to say, I really appreciate what you're doing and to clarify, the zoning code is going to be very helpful for everybody in the city. But I feel now, I think it's interesting that Carluso feels they are the only business that are affected by this. There are many businesses on the waterfront, and there are many residents that use the waterfront, and we're all in this together as one big city. And we're trying really hard to balance it all out so that people can live a really good life here. And the waterfront is used by a lot of our citizens and a lot of the children. And so I think the beauty of what you're doing is creating a balance. And that's what I think all really want. I appreciate very much you being here.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Donna Strike, I live in the first ward. Thank you for proposing this clarification of the zoning code. It's an important clarification of expectations on operational volume if 2011 numbers can't be determined. It supports the long-term vision of the LWRP by quantifying parameters for industrial activity and supporting a compatible mix of uses of the waterfront. It's important to remember the intent of the LWRP, as John indicated. Policy 2, page 83, regarding the continued operation of the port by wholesome orderly sea, states, however, to ensure that this existing use comports with the LWRP, modernization of the activity must be subject to a conditional use permit and site plan approval, which imposes appropriate controls on the use of and site to ensure that activity will be in character with the city's waterfront plan. Specifically, shipping operations at the port must not conflict with or compromise the city's ability to meet the goal of Policy 4 to promote such desirable activities as recreational fishing, marinas, historic preservation, cultural pursuits, and other compatible activities that have made smaller harbor areas appealing as tourist destinations and as commercial and residential areas. And lastly, an excerpt from the LWRP vision statement, one of the primary objectives. The city's LWRP is intended to guide and support through zoning changes and other agreements, development within the waterfront boundary area, which supports and continues the regional shift away from water-dependent industrial uses to a mix of compatible, higher economically valued mixed uses that includes commercial, residential, tourism, retail, shipping, and office uses, water-dependent and enhanced recreational uses, and the preservation of open space. This is a much needed clarification of the code, and I urge you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Hello. My name is Amy Debisbury, and I live on Alley Street. And I want to thank you all for taking an interest in being here to make some important decision about this. And I just wanted to say that for me, the most helpful aspect of this clarification will be for the planning board itself. Because I think it needs to be clear for the planning board what the parameters are of the zoning code and so on. And I think this will really clarify things for them. And so I thank you very much for doing this. And I don't, yes, on that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, so let's speak up. Tony Stone, I live in Bridgeport. Thank you all for reviewing this law. I do think it's a simple clarification that really puts Hudson first and creates a fair compromise. So really happy to see that you guys are having a vote here. I know a lot of words are just spoken from legal over here about cost of lawsuits. I think that this helps the planning board avoid the lawsuits, whether it's from people or whether it's from Russo. The last lawsuit that the city won against Colarusso came out at a cost of about $12,000 or $13,000. So we're talking about small sums to make a big difference in Hudson if that does come to fruition. So I don't think we should be really making policy based on threats of lawsuits. The last planning board meeting, that's what the planning board itself said we should avoid. When the conversation came up and they laughed that they ever make a decision based on the threat of lawsuit. So this strikes a fair balance. These numbers are, I think, less than or more than what Colarusso is running this year, is what it looks like. And I think this is just the time to clarify what the LWRP was about, which was about deindustrializing the waterfront. And I think it's just about bringing up some first one. So thank you all. Really appreciate doing this law. Please vote yes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Melissa Onfenauer, first ward resident, business owner, standing resident, living on Allen Street, overlooking for 17 years the growing activity on the waterfront. I feel pretty well versed in the slow growth, and we are supportive of growth. We are not asking anybody to stop industrial expansion. We are well informed of the existing codes. We were part of the LWRP revisions under Mayor Hamilton. We feel very informed of what the zoning, the LWRP has been asking the city of Hudson to uphold for a well-balanced waterfront and not to overshadow any of the human actions or the direct potential industrial expansions. And from our reading of this law and the zoning, it doesn't seem like a reasonable path asking the Colarusso team to follow a cap and helping the planning board not have to make up their own versions of this zoning. We're relying on you to help guide all of us. And we believe it's a good balance. You know, of course, do some people hope no trucks, but we've never asked for no trucks. We just want to balance people in industrial coexistence. And this seems like a very reasonable and hopeful first time. Personally, I felt hopeful about finding a peaceful resolution for everybody, including them. We don't want anybody to suffer. No one's businesses should go under in Basilica Hudson. It's our 15th year. We've been there longer than their operation has been, and we will suffer. And we are, but we are working with it. We are working with the dust. We're working with the no sidewalks. We are not asking them to leave. We are asking you to help us be there together. please. And we are reasonable, and I consider you reasonable, and please don't be bullied by people who want what they want. You want all of it, and I please ask you to use your well-balanced hearts to consider the real vote to help us find it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online?
No hands.
No? Sure.
I think also an important part of this clarification would ensure going forward, given that, acknowledging that obviously Cold Russo has long rights to operate there, they own it. The issue really is what happens going forward if they're no longer in the picture. People are saying here, centering Hudson, keeping Hudson first is an important thing. That should be the centermost on your minds as local legislatures. If under any circumstance decide to leave or sell, and there's no understanding of what the actual zoning on the dock as separate from the private road, because they're two separate considerations. So you're talking about activity of the dock. If there is what they want, then that means any other business that tends to come in that might not have, that might not be a local business, could come in and do lots of things. So kind of trying to establish a baseline that balances things is in the best interest of the city.
Thank you.
Just also want to reiterate, so part of this, I think, is a little bit of a mountain out of a molehill, because the zoning code talked a lot about this already, and I think what's happening, what's in front of you, is a clarification to just make it more clear what was intended. It seems very clear to me that it was never intended to have a much more massive industrial expansion at the waterfront. The waterfront has obviously changed quite a bit in 2 decades, and it's shifting away from industrial uses, and that was the intention of the LWRP, that was the intention of the update to the zoning code, and it's shifted to commercial, residential, tourism, retail, breakfast sandwiches. I care a lot about breakfast sandwiches. But I appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, not a comment, it's just a question.
We have other questions.
Oh, it's my written comments. Can I skip those?
Yeah, sure. Anyone online? No further comments. This public hearing is now closed. Stay tuned for our meeting at 7.